Sorry about that. Forgot the story for a second. But let's get back to what I was talking about. This man, Largo. He had a problem with Davik. He owed him some money. And I just happened to have 200 credits on me. From selling things and finding things. And Largo happened to have 7 credits in his apartment. But you know how it is. I'm not in it for the money. I'm in it to help people. But I'm also in it to win it at the greatest game. You gotta have something to hunger for, you know what I mean? If I'm playing Pazaak and I'm already rich, what's the point? It's always about the chase. And I knew that if I had too much money, I would lose that desire for the chase. We were still running around the apartments looking for Sarna, but you know, a few people left their doors open. And it wasn't about the money, but they did have some supplies, like some splices and some parts. I knew we'd need them at some point, but then we came across the Sith party. And they were all popping back these Tarisi nails like they were nothing, and before you knew it, BAM! They were all on the ground. But luckily, they left behind their Sith armor. And I figured, you know, they don't know my name. Let's just take that armor. We might need it at some point. I knew we had to get down to the lower city, and apparently the Sith were the only ones really allowed to travel down there. So I figured, you know, maybe a disguise isn't the worst thing in the world. But with that, we decided to leave the apartments because we had what we needed. We didn't want the Sith to wake up from with a bad hangover and their armor missing and us right nearby. So we got out of there pretty quick.
What is this?
Then we came across these idiot drunks.
A drink? No.
We offered to buy them a drink because, you know, they seemed like they could use a little more, but then they were like, nah. One of them actually had some sense and was like, we're too far gone. We gotta get out of here. And I was like, see, Karth, I solved that problem without anything. Didn't even have to spend money. Came across this nice woman selling utility droids. She only had one piece of junk droid for sale at the time. Janice Nall was like, hey, I got this nice little T3H8, but as soon as we tried to leave the store with it, it exploded. Now, I'm not against capitalism and all that, you know, that's how I afford the great game, but I think I deserved a refund, so I ran back in. I was like, hey, Janice, it blew up. Can I just have my money back, please? And she just gave it back, no problem. And I decided to take it from there to actually look into buying some stuff from her. She didn't have too much for sale that I really cared about, though. Lots of stuff for droids. And since we didn't have a droid at the time, we weren't really concerned with it. But we did use it the chance to offload a few things on her. Some blasters we had. But with that, we decided we would leave. We came across this absolute crazy guy, Gordon Kolu.
Listen to me,
he was screaming about. He was just screaming from the rooftops about how aliens were awful. Told Karth to get into the Sith armor. He was missing armor anyway. But somehow the idiot guard at the elevator only assumed that if one of us was in armor, then, hey, we're all Sith here. So they let us go down just fine. But I figured Karth wearing some Sith armor down in the Undercity, in the lower city, probably was going to get us in some trouble. Unfortunately, trouble found us always immediately. As soon as we stepped out of the elevator, we came across a conflict between some black Vulkars and some hidden Daks. Had no clue who they were at the time, but boy, were we going to find out. Unfortunately for us, pretty quickly these Vulkars seemed to tear apart these Beck guys. And then, of course, being the kind-hearted lower city gang members that they were, they descended upon Karth and I. It was a pretty annoying battle considering there were 3 of them and only 2 of us, but Karth had his blasters and was giving me some good covering fire as I dropped 2 of them. One of them actually had a Volker shock stick, which actually knocked Karth on his ass for a little while. Was tempted to draw something on him, but I figured that wouldn't be the action of a professional Republic soldier. Decided to check out what was down near the dead end in the hallway, but all it was two Volkers apparently guarding the entrance to their base. And we had no chance of going in there. We weren't even interested in going in there. But Karth and I decided just for spite out of them attacking us that we would take out their two front guardsmen. Karth dropped one and I got tired of dealing with the other one, so I started raining blows on him. But they were actually guards for a reason. They were blocking some blows, but then one of them foolishly ran over to engage Karth and I was able to hit him. It was tempting to try to break into the Volker base, but we decided we'd save that for another time. Karth and I were still pretty shaken after our landing on the planet. In fact, we decided to run back to base for a second just to heal up. But then we decided to check out some of the apartments down in the lower city. We actually found a droid just kind of hanging out. And I was like, hey, I got a few repair parts lying around. Why don't we see if this droid can help us out? So I turned it on and bam! Right away we saw some black Volkers hanging out. But one little grenade solved one of their problems. And then the other one's problem was solved at the butt end of a blaster. But with our nice little backup roaming around, Karth and I decided to start exploring these apartments that apparently were full of Volkers. But you know, if they're gonna leave their stuff lying around and just guard some stuff, well, they hadn't exactly gone out of their way to make a good impression on us, so we figured, hey, why not just see what we can get here? Our little droid buddy actually ran into some Volkers too, but we were able to me and Karth were able to come in and help clear that guy up. He was our boy. We had just repaired him. He was just floating there. Apparently the Volkers had just left him for scrap. We could use all the help we could get down here. But you know, grenades are effective too. We blew away a bunch of Volkers with some grenade fire. Before I could even get close, though, the droid took out one guy, but then we came across more Volkers. One of them actually had an energy shield. Thankfully, at the time, I was just using good old swords and got in a really good hit on him. And just like that, Karth and I had our very first energy shield. I threw it on my wrist, wondering when I'd get the chance to use it, but I also found, more importantly for Karth, I found a nice heavy blaster to complement his personal one that he brought from the ship. I decided as I was gonna focus on getting faster and faster as time went on. I was practically drowning in abilities at this time. But, you know, we were still exploring the apartments. Came across this crazy apartment. Apparently it was owned by something called the Twisted Rancor Trio. They had these 6 weird projectors set up around this strongbox. And it was a real puzzle until Karth had the idea, why don't you check the data pad we found? And it had a history of the band. Elinda, Uha Uhi, Lopa, Elinda, Uha, Uhi, Lopa, Now I'm trying to remember who that fifth member was. Pretty sure Ashana was added last, so that would mean Photo was second to last. Lo and behold, with a little shimmer, the strong box opened up. We found ourselves in possession of some fancy Achani fiber armor. That, you know, yours truly started wearing for a good while afterward. But that meant Karth could have his nice own combat suit, and I knew he'd appreciate that.
No problem. Got it. Kipuna.
Found a man named Maverick in an apartment. He was working for the exchange, and apparently there was another bounty on his head. Lots of people with bounties around here, apparently. His plan was actually to set a permacrete detonator in his apartment and blow it up and trust that no one would ever dig through the rubble to find his body. Luckily, when I was in the upper city, I had bought that permacrete detonator, and I just handed it over to him. Figured he doesn't have a lot of valuables on him, so it was worth it to just get it out of the way now and not risk pissing him off and just help him fake his own death. No one should be in trouble with the exchange. He thanked me and then just left. And his apartment was just a big hole.
Yeah.
Karth seemed like he was more ready to talk about his family at this point, so I talked to him. Although he did something pretty stupid.
Well, that makes...
He implied, he basically started talking about his trust issues at this point. But for whatever reason, Karth just didn't seem to trust me, even though, you know, we had fought together for a while now. But whatever, Karth, you do you. Thought I heard our droid fighting somebody. But anyway, Karth was still having trouble trusting that apparently the Jedi added me to the roster of the Endar Spire at the last minute. I didn't remember any of this, but I took Karth's word for it. But he basically implied I might have had something to do with the crash, which seems pretty stupid, Karth, when you think about it. I mean, you know, it's not like the Jedi would have added me just to screw things up. But then we found ourselves in the Lower City Canteen, and all my problems went away because it was time to find more people ready to play the game. And lo and behold, we found a man named Uriah who was selling Pazaak cards. And he actually had some +1s and plus-minus cards, and I was like, whoa. Gotta get in on that. I managed to buy up all the plus-minus cards he had, except for his plus-minus. Now, I just needed someone to play against.
Greetings, stranger.
Found a man named Gelrude who said he was banned from the upper city. Don't know why the heck that would be. But now with a slightly upgraded deck, I was ready to go. I had to earn some money back, though. I had just spent most of mine on Karth's hard-earned money, just blowing it on some Pazaak cards, but I had to show Karth that it was worth it. He stood on 18, and I was at 23, but then I realized, oh man, my brand new flip card! -3, boom, we're done. I was sitting on 3 cards, he was on 3 cards. I was at 16, bam, drop a +4, we're at 20. He was probably gonna match, nope, he ended up busting. But I was down to only 2 cards instead of his 3. But I had an 18 and I hit a +2 to go to a 20 again. Could have hit the 3-0, nope, he had a +5 card. I was ahead 2 rounds, but he was ahead 1 card, so it was anybody's game. I was sitting on a +5, not exactly the most useful card when you're looking at the late game. But he was we were neck and neck, and I was at an 18, and I had to stand, because I was up 2 rounds. I could afford it, but then he won with a +5. If only I'd had the opportunity to use my +5. 14, I figured, what the hell, just drop my +5, go to 19, and stand. He had 1 card left and was down 2 rounds. Nope, he busted on 23. Had a -5, hit 23 again, and bam, victory. And just like that, I had won another game. But then as soon as we stepped into the bar proper, we came across a bit of a scene.
Go away.
Apparently some guys just decided, some black Volkers, excuse me, decided they were gonna bother Calo Nord. Well, they learned pretty quick that that wasn't gonna work, and then about 30 seconds after that, they stopped learning for good. Didn't even try to stop him though. I knew that it would be a bit foolish to try to talk to Calo Nord on his way out of a bar after just killing some dudes for talking to him. Came across a woman named Lynn. She was apparently doing a dance routine. She was doing her dance audition for some band I'd never heard of. But I just decided to help her out. You know, I'm pretty quick on my feet. Not to brag, but I got some moves. Certainly enough to get her through her audition. And I just started dancing beside her. Damn, if I didn't look good doing it. Pumping the air, doing whatever moves I needed to do. Lynn and I just, bam, we booked it. Round 1, round 2, no problem. Round 3, add in the little ooh, wave. And then the air pound, and it was like, boom, I can do that too. Let's dance. And then we boogied, and then we did the hand wave of goodbye, and bam, just like that, we had ourselves an audition complete. She made it into something called the Starlight Entertainers. I don't really know or care who they are, but I was more important to talking to Zax about some bounties. I had some bounties I wanted to collect on. I got 400 credits because I had the guts to bargain with Zax about the bounty price. But just like that, we had money again, and all to fake someone's death. Then we came across another scene, a bit less violent, but not too much.
I told you to leave me alone. So give me some space, bug-eye. Who you calling?
This little Twi'lek girl was apparently being harassed by some Volkers, but then she called her Wookiee friend over, and things were getting a little dangerous.
You gotta.
But then apparently the Zalbar, the Wookiee's name was Big Z.
Say, I don't reckon.
Made a silly comment about speaking the same language. But apparently the girl's name was Mission and her Wookiee buddy was Zalbar. But they took off apparently to go hang out in the Undercity. Don't worry, we'll see them again in our story. After a cursory check of the bar, we came across this man, Holden.
What? Oh. Don't.
Being a nice guy, I decided to take my 400 credits from the fake Matrix bounty since I hadn't even done much work for that anyway, and I got Holden to take away the bounty on Dia's head. So I figured that would save her. But I figured I could do another game of Pazaak before I left.
Excellent.
Ooh, 2 flip cards. An excellent start to the game. +/-6, +/-1, and 2 +2s. I was ready to rock. He stood on an 18. Bam! I had an 18 too, but I had the +2 card to take the win. Apparently he was banned in the upper city, but I don't know why. He was playing worse than Niklos up there. Got a 19, not worth wasting a card when I'm ahead and down a card. Figured I'd stand. Okay, he took the round, but now we're on even footing, and I'm pretty sure my cards are better than his. Ended up on a 13, not a problem. 15, still not a problem. Let's keep going. 19, though, that's worth standing on. But then he managed to sneak out the 20, that devil. We were down, though. He had 2 rounds on us, and we still had only 1 round. I'm not one interested in losing, so I dropped a -6 on a 24. Taking a chance. Still blew it.
You played well in our last match.
But then... let's play again. I figured I could beat Gelrude. I had already done it once. This was just a bad draw. I was determined to beat him. Got a natural 20 out of 4 cards. Boom. He had a -3 to save his ass when he would hit 23, but I was still up a card now. Drawn real low, even though I was drawn first every single game. He was getting real high real quick. He stood on an 18, but that's when I knew I had him. Instead of using my +3 to get to exactly 20, I decided to drop my +2 and end at 19 and still beat him. Gotta keep those flexible cards for when I really need them. Coming out of the gates quick with a 13. Bam, nat 20 though. He ended up with 24, couldn't get the minus. Coming out of the gates quick with a 10, no big deal. Straight up nat 20 again, bam. This guy's got no chance against this kind of luck.
You did well enough. If you're back again.
Ended up not losing or gaining anybody.
A simple misunderstanding. As no. If you're.
Alrighty. But let's go find ourselves a new challenger. We beat Gelrude 2 out of 3, and he wasn't offering anything interesting. That's when we decided to check out the hidden Becks. I told the woman at the lookout we could be an ally against all of his enemies, and she realized, you know, there's probably not much these 2 guys can do, even though little did she know Republic soldiers are pretty badass. But she said she had let us into the Beck base on the premise of helping out Gaddon, which we were fine with. But before we talked to Gaddon, we figured we'd see his base a little bit, see how he runs things.
Didn't work.
Found a door that even I couldn't crack open. Hidden Beck seemed kind of... Base was, you know, a little leaky in some places.
No problem. Didn't work.
Hold it right there.
Gaddon's guard Zerdra was pretty jumpy, threatening to kill us, but but that's when we found out that Bastila
good choice. I suggest you.
Basically what happened in that whole exchange with Gaddon, just so you know. Gaddon told us apparently Bastila had been found in a pod that crashed in the Republic City, and damn it, we were too late. But he told us that the leader of the Black Vulkars was putting her up as a prize in this upcoming big swoop race. Apparently slavery is still legal down here, unfortunately. But that gave us a chance. If I could, Gaddon even offered to let me race in the race to be the one to get Bastila back, but he figured the only way I could win, silly him, was to get a prototype accelerator that the Becks had developed to help them win at swoop races. But the Vulkars had stolen it, so now our job was to go find Mission in the Undercity, get her to get us into the Black Vulkar base, and from there we'd steal back the accelerator, and I would be allowed to go in the race to get Bastila back. Of course, it doesn't help that I didn't have a great opinion of the Vulkars by now, running across them in the street and jumping the gun to attack me and Karth at any opportunity, as we just encountered. But we figured we could pop back to the apartment, heal up for a second, and then come back and do it and keep going. There wasn't much. We also had traded our Sith uniform to Gaddon for some apparently he had some documents that would get us into the Undercity.
Just because you're in some gang?
Came across a bit of an interesting scene where some Black Vulkars refused to pay back Davik.
Okay.
But Davik's agent called in just some reinforcements, also known as a man named Canderous Ordo.
I knew.
Vulkars paid up real quick after Canderous showed up.
Those
But Canderous wasn't in the mood to talk, at least not then. But don't worry, we'll hear from him again later. But once we entered another set of Lower City apartments, we found a familiar scene involving Calo Nord.
Agi inko dune chuna ra tangi wama jikona. Donki jiyokaku.
Here's a bounty.
Just
That's the...
And apparently this time, Kala was the one on the offensive, so he just came in, found 2 Rhodians who he was looking for a bounty on, and dropped him like it was nothing. Took one look at me, didn't recognize me as a bounty, and bam, like that, Kalanor was gone.
What? What?
Took a second to help Karth. Man, there's a lot of Volkers down here. I don't know why the Becks just hang out in their bases, but there are Volkers everywhere when you're in the Undercity on Taris. But luckily, Karth and I were doing a pretty good job of cleaning them up. Though I can understand why some of Gadden's gang members were a little worried about the Volkers. They seem to have very large numbers on their side compared to the Becks. But then again, the Volkers weren't exactly easy to, or hard to kill. So we didn't have a ton of trouble with them. Thankfully, though, we actually found another Volker with an energy shield so that Karth could have one. I tried picking up a mine, but thankfully it didn't blow up in my face, but I was not good enough to steal it. But the Volkers were guarding something, so I knew I should check it out. Luckily, they seem to be guarding a supply of their grenades. But we must have set off some kind of alarm because some Volkers showed up as soon as we tried to steal their stuff. But a few flicks of the sword and some blasts from Karth, and that wasn't really a problem anymore. Whoops. I accidentally pulled out the wrong med pack there and used an advanced one. Weren't finding much other than combat suits at the point, so Karth was kind of stuck without amazing armor. But I had a feeling his luck would change in that regard. But yeah, that was me and Karth, Volker hunters, working our way through the Taris lower city streets. You know, in the upper city, when we broke into apartments, there were actually, you know, people in there, but down in the lower city, it seemed like the Volkers had chased everyone out and were using these apartment complexes as hangout points. But luckily, we had a nice supply of grenades and our swords and blasters to kind of keep that under control. But then we came across a very interesting little apartment. Someone actually had kept the Volkers out, it seemed, and their supplies were actually booby-trapped. Found a really old lockbox, but, you know, something told me I knew the answer to some of these questions. There was a message on the desk that just happened to tell me everything I needed.
Sure.
Well, just like that, Karth and I were off again. And we had some fancy New Republic mod armor for Karth. Nothing super fantastic, but certainly better than the combat suit he was wearing at the time.
No problem. Got it.
Plus, I'm sure.
Stop right there.
But then we came across a woman named Selvin, and I felt like I'd heard her name at the office where Zach was, the bounty office. But Karth and I decided this is someone who's a hired assassin. We can take on this bounty.
I gave you. Now you.
She was certainly a tough fight, though. Quite a bit tougher than, Wow. She was quite a bit tougher than, any other fight we'd had. Being a master assassin kind of seems to apparently give you a few advantages, if you know what I mean. But, you know, Karth and I, we just popped some stimulants, and we were ready to take her on.
I gave you a.
She'd started off throwing a grenade at Karth, which I'm sure he didn't appreciate, but it actually froze him solid. But, foolishly, she turned her back to me, and I just dropped her with a few nice swings of my sword. Definitely was not a situation in which that did not happen. She'd actually had some good gear on her. She had our first headband and our first belt. I threw both on. Sorry, Karth. I get priority. But that meant I was ready to rock more than ever. But our luck still held out because now we had some more money to go, or we had another bounty we could take to Zach's once we finished up down here. After her, though, a single Black Volker member wasn't really a huge trouble. I can see why the Volkers kind of left her alone, though. I don't think any of the Volker members we'd come across so far could have possibly taken her out. But just like that, we were done with the apartments in the lower city. I figured we didn't need the money right now, so we could probably save going back to Zach's until later. Karth was feeling pretty wounded, though, so we popped back to the apartment. But once we were ready to keep going, we found yet again some more Volkers just hanging out near the elevator to the Undercity for some stupid reason. One grenade took one out, almost killed another one, and then me and Karth just dropped the other two pretty quick. Sith Guard, funnily enough, just kind of watched us do it. Didn't really care. And thankfully for us, he super didn't care because we were able to go up to him and use our nice fancy new papers. Thankfully, too, that he didn't take a threat to us taking out those Volkers, because he had a lot of turrets. Apparently, the Sith really didn't want people going to the Undercity for some reason. I mean, I'd assume it's because of the pods, but, oh, and then we went down to the Undercity, and man, things were bad. We found some beggars chilling in the Undercity who were trying to get money from us. Decided to throw 20 credits at them to get them out of our way. Nice woman named Shalina came up to us. She told us about some people. Apparently an old man named Rukul kept going on about the Promised Land, and the leader of the village was Gendar. All that kind of good stuff. Also saw a weird caged-off area, though, that Karth and I decided to investigate. Apparently there was a healer maintaining a gated-off area where people infected with the rat ghoul disease were being held. She didn't sell anything, but she could heal me and Karth, which was really helpful. But we decided to go in and maybe try to help ease the suffering of some of these people. Since we figured Karth and I were the ones who could handle taking on some rat ghouls. Especially because we were still stimmed up from our fight with Selvin. I took some bad hits, though, pretty quick from these rat ghouls. They were certainly stronger than people who had been infected were. But a couple dodges, a couple shots from Karth's blaster, and a couple swings of the sword. And we had taken out 3 rat ghouls. There were still 2 other people, but from looking at them, they didn't seem like they were quite as far gone as the ones we had just dealt with. So I decided that we would try to find some Sith with that rat ghoul serum. And once we'd done that, hopefully we could heal these people. But I didn't want to stress them out and risk triggering the disease anytime soon. Found a slimy-looking guy named Igir who wanted us to buy stuff from him. He did have some shockingly nice stuff, considering where we were. He had one really nice pistol. He also had some Pazaak cards, but nothing too interesting. Just some -2s, a +2, and a +3, -3. Like I said, nothing I really needed. The Arcanian pistol looked nice, and I figured Karth would appreciate that, but it was 750 credits, and we weren't exactly swimming in it at the time. We did have a bunch of med packs that we decided to sell off since we weren't in super desperate need of them. We figured we'd find more. But Igir didn't have a ton of money on him, and he didn't want us to sell. Just sell. But we sold him some stuff, and he had some credits on him, and he figured he'd sell stuff to guys visiting the Underworld sometimes. Undercity.
Run, Hindar, run!
But when we went to the main gate, we found a short scene in progress.
If I open the gate, they'll kill us all.
Apparently, a man named Hendar was outside and was suddenly beset upon by rat ghouls. But Karth and I decided to rush outside and try to defend Hendar from the Rakghoul menace. Now it would just be up to Hendar to not get himself killed like an idiot. Luckily, the Rakghoul seemed to take an interest in me more than it did Hendar once we were out there. I was in pretty bad shape, but luckily I knew that the village healer could probably help. But just like that... Oh. Before I was able to do anything, though, the illness got to me, but I popped back up. But Hester and Hendar, we saved...
Thank you. Goodbye.
But the gate guard appreciated us, but we weren't able to do anything. But we saved a man and kept his family together. His wife, Hester, was very grateful that we had proven that not all Upworlders were shit. But I decided, hey, maybe I should go talk to the healer before me and Karth actually go out on a real expedition. She took one look at me and was like, yep, I can take care of that. Luckily, the Rakghoul disease seemed to burn itself out inside of you, so lucky you. Couldn't tell if she was being scornful of me at the time or what.